Scam is a word so old that most dictionaries can't even ascribe an origin to the word.
Up next, con artists pick millions from the pockets of the public by ripping off the system. The famous French Connection cop Sonny Grosso once said, "There's a touch of larceny in everyone's heart." Unfortunately, too many have more than just a touch. With con artists, larceny isn't a part of their life, it is their life.
If someone's out there who's intending to rip you off and you don't have knowledge about the particular thing and you haven't checked them out, there's almost nothing you can do to protect yourself.
One of the costliest scams homeowners can face involves people who literally put the word con in construction. Tom Vita is a Los Angeles licensed general contractor.
The biggest investment that people will probably make is in their home. And they can fall prey to some of these scams because they don't understand how the house is put together, what makes it work. They don't understand how things are supposed to be done. And that makes them easy prey for a scam artist because they'll come in and just do it any old way. They want to get in, they want to get out, they want to make their money.
Tom has made a good part of his living repairing mistakes or upgrading poor construction done by other contractors. A big swindle consumers face with home construction is the bait and switch sales pitch. Simply, you are conned into paying for high-quality work, but end up with something quite different. To the untrained eye, it may seem fine, but what you are seeing here is the result of shoddy work from a bait-and-switch renovation. To Tom, the results and the problems are very obvious.
If I were to describe the job that these guys did in this house, I could only say that it's at best lower handyman quality. The workmanship was not what they offered and not what they guaranteed. And the men that were there were doing the work were not skilled.
It seems this construction company was very familiar with and prepared to face customer dissatisfaction.
The interesting thing about this bait and switch scam was that when the customer complained about the quality of the workmanship, they immediately gave him a $3,000 discount and made him sign a waiver so that he couldn't complain or sue them. So they had the paperwork handy. The homeowner can't be on camera because he signed the waiver. But I can because I have to go in there and I have to clean this mess up and bring this kitchen up to standards that it should be. And by doing that, I need to, we need to install outlets. We need to redo a lot of trim. Last time I was there, the disposal wasn't working. The refrigerator doesn't fit in its opening. They removed one piece of trim to get the refrigerator in and never put it back. So now you have a door with just two pieces of trim, one going across the top, one going down the side, and then nothing. It's probably going to cost him an additional $5,000 to bring this kitchen up to speed.
This shady contractor used improper sink grouting, damaged an antique stove, scratched and damaged newly finished floors, failed to install all the cabinet fixtures, left coatings on that should have been removed, charged $1,500 to paint the kitchen without removing nails in the wall, miswired light switches and outlets, and improperly and unsafely installed a dishwasher. Tom's logic is simple. You get what you pay for.
He's the cheapest because he needs the work. He needs the work because he's not that good.
There are ways to avoid true con artists when you are looking to do major work on your home.
The best way to find a general contractor to work on your house is through referrals. If somebody you know, a family member or a friend, has had that contractor work on their house, had the full experience with him. So you can go see the work and how he handled it.
Another danger that homeowners face is high-pressure salesmen who combine supplying a needed service with one you don't need and then push you into doing it. This is Bob Emmons, an assistant DA with the Nassau County, New York's District Attorney's Office.
This particular film clip is a person trying to sell a chimney repair. They're not taking no for an answer. The chimney doesn't necessarily need the repair he's claiming, and he continually badgers our undercover homeowner to do it. Bottom line is they didn't need the repair.
Even undercover investigators were shocked by the intensity of this high-pressure sales pitch.
What's the most that you'd be able to afford for the caps? I know it's a recession, I know it's things, but you definitely need them on the top there.
Well, I'll tell you, I'd have to call you back on that, but I couldn't do it now.
And they were under instructions to pay for the cleaning and pay for nothing else.
You give us post-dated check for 30 days, I can call the company and ask.
But just shows the high-pressure sales tactics that we capture in our house things, and they show that the consumers are preyed upon to try to be talked into paying for things that they don't need.
200. Can you afford that?
No.
150.
Now, right now,
That's including the suite.
right now, I wouldn't want to go for that.
Why? That's so cheap.
And this guy went out of his way to literally push the customer into doing the work that didn't need to be done, to the point where he started discounting the price. From $300 and something down to 150. That's something to look out for. You're probably being scammed.
When high-pressure sales pitches don't work, some dishonest repairmen make up stories to convince the customers to sign on the bottom line.
The clip involved here is, again, part of our house thing. We do these repeatedly because we constantly see that the average homeowner can be ripped off.
The senior citizen that was part of the sting knew nothing about termites, but did know the house had been thoroughly checked and it was certified free of the wood-destroying insects.
Here's a termite guy on a house we know has no termites because it's been inspected before we rented.
In this next video, the DA's office hears a sales pitch stunningly overhyped and full of obvious lies.
There are termites?
Yeah, there's termites here, right?
How can you tell?
Just from the evidence, they leave what they call termite grass behind. And you see when it's 1, 2, 3. How long have you owned this house?
Desperately trying to convince us that there's termites in the house. And as part of his thing, he goes on to say that you probably don't see the termites because termites don't like people.
You see what happens when you're not home, they swarm and they shed the wings to reproduce and then they just go away, but you won't see dead insects, you'll just see the transparent wings.
What do you mean when you're not home? Like, you're not...
See, they swarm in the spring.
Oh.
And you may not be home, and they only do it for like 20 minutes.
So when you go to work and you leave the house, the termites, they swarm, they do their damage, and then they go back in hiding so that they're not there when you get home. And then he also claimed that where they might be, he didn't want to damage the house, so he can't really show us where the termites was.
And there is another thing, too. I could go down and rip some boards open and show you the live ones if you want to see that, because a lot of times people don't believe you, you know. I don't make a practice of it, you know, because of the fact is that who goes around ripping people's houses apart. You just don't do it. But sometimes, you know, what we do with 40% of my business is preventive maintenance. I say, hey, this is an old house. You're starting to see things. Don't you think you're going to get termites sooner or later? For this size house, it would run you, legitimately now, it should run you no less than $650 and no more than $950.
The termites only come out when you leave story was one of the most outrageous lies on tape ever heard by the DA. With the help of video surveillance, this salesman was heavily fined for his actions and even lost his license. The evening news often features images of property and lives torn apart by natural disasters. These devastating events provide a golden opportunity for con artists.
Whenever you have a natural disaster, such as a flood or a hurricane or a tornado, shady contractors are going to swoop in there and try to make hay while the sun shines.
These unlicensed contractors were videotaped as they tried to bilk the homeowner and his insurance company. An El Nino storm caused considerable damage to homes in Southern California. What you are seeing is hidden camera footage of door-to-door construction con artists offering a repair service on solar-powered water heating roof panels. Here we see them replacing damaged panels with what turned out to be malfunctioning, poorly rebuilt units that were fraudulently sold to homeowners as new. These homeowners collected insurance to cover the cost of the replacement panels, but soon faced new problems with them creating additional costs. Here we see investigators arrive and arrest the criminal contractors. This tape helped convict, then sentence them for fraud.
When confronted with the video evidence, a fraud suspect will cave in on the spot and either withdraw the claim or will admit guilt rather than having taken it into court.
Video surveillance is often the key piece of evidence in bringing con artists to justice. Up next, is your auto mechanic friend or foe? Automobiles have become so complex, when repairs are needed, many of us are at a loss for how to evaluate the claims of our local mechanic.
This is a body shop that, instead of fixing cars, damages them. In this case, this auto body shop had what they called the moneymaker. And the moneymaker was a huge hammer wrapped in aluminum foil. And a car would come in with a little fender bender, a little bit of damage, and they would take the moneymaker and smash the car.
Insurance companies became suspicious of the magnitude and frequency of these repairs, so they reported the body shop to the DA's office. A hidden camera was legally put in place.
In one case, they put the hammer underneath the front hood of the car, closed the hood over it to crinkle the hood up to make it look like it was a front-end collision. And we got shot after shot repeatedly of them deliberately damaging cars to take a low-dollar claim and make it into a high-dollar claim. And the insurance adjuster would come in, see all this massive damage, agree with them, and pay the big bill, and the car owner didn't know.
This repair shop ripoff did have its customer benefits.
Because the car owner got their deductible covered by the collision shop. It was very nice of them to do that, and their car came back in perfect condition. They thought it was the perfect crime, that no one would know. They get away with thousands of dollars.
Once again, with the aid of a well-placed undercover video surveillance camera, the auto body repair scammers were brought to justice.
This is unbelievable. This is insurance fraud at its highest degree.
Not all fraud occurs at the body shop. From smog test scams to repair ripoffs, the local mechanic can also be an automotive con artist. Jeff Kellerman is a certified mechanic and smog technician in Los Angeles. He's worked on every type of car imaginable, from classic American cars to Rolls-Royces. TV news occasionally runs consumer affairs stings. A few years ago, Jeff's garage was the target of an undercover TV car repair story. His shop passed with flying colors.
They brought a vehicle in, and I think it was something very simple or minor that they had tampered with or altered on the vehicle, and it was a very simple type of repair, like a simple reconnection.
Since Jeff was familiar with undercover auto stings, we asked him to comment on some crooked repairmen caught on tape.
What he's doing to the radiator right now is actually, looks like he's trying to damage it, pierce it with a crowbar. And this guy's gonna get caught.
Fraudulent work like this gives mechanics a bad name. It also leaves consumers with an unexpectedly large bill.
The average cost of a radiator repaired is about $300, and that isn't a cheap repair.
As a certified smog technician, we also asked Jeff to comment on a recent sting investigation surrounding California's smog test program, the toughest in the country. If your car doesn't pass, you can't use it.
These were stings that were set up by the state under investigation of a facility that was known to be doing false certifying of the vehicles.
In one case, investigators caught this Cadillac being used by its owner to generate the test results for 10 different cars, ensuring all passed the smog test. You can see the smog test technician inserting the smog tester into her caddy's tailpipe instead of the car she's supposed to be testing. She is doing this for the 8th time that day. Other than this videotape, the state would have no way of knowing which car was tested.
These stings were so successful that they've actually changed the smog check program and made it more difficult for a technician to smog a car illegally.
Other smog testers were caught simply accepting bribes to pass vehicles. Here we see a man making a payoff to ensure his truck gets the okay. In effect, the smog technicians were creating an illegal cottage industry, netting untold amounts of money and cheating the state and the environment in the process. Some of the smog scammers were fined and even jailed for their illegal efforts.
The state now has a different type of program where technicians are certified, and the testing is now different, and the vehicles need to be identified correctly or the smog test will not go through.
Want to determine if your regular mechanic does honest work? Jeff gives the following advice.
The best way to prevent yourself from being ripped off by a mechanic is maybe set up your own sting, bring your vehicle in, and have a simple, minor thing that you've done to the car and see if they're honest about the repair.
Up next, what happens when crooked repairmen come into your home? Con artists hunt for situations and victims to take advantage of. Malfunctioning appliances offer the perfect opportunity for illicit repairmen to make a crooked buck. Consumers typically have no idea about the inner workings of kitchen appliances, so when these machines break down, someone is called in to fix them. When repairmen arrive, we are at their mercy. The state attorney's office in Jacksonville, Florida recently ran a hidden camera test by rigging a loose wire on a refrigerator. Except for the loose wire, every part on this refrigerator is in excellent condition. The first repairman must have believed he was psychic because he was able to determine the cost of the repair simply by opening the door.
That install is going to be about $139. $139. Don't mean to be so quick here. I've just done this a lot. Yeah.
His guesstimate comes before he even checks out the refrigerator. When he finally begins poking around inside, he discovers the loose wire. He shows this to his associate, replaces a perfectly good part with another, and then quotes a price for all his hard work.
141.43.
141.43.
Yes.
Perhaps with a sudden attack of conscience, he offers a discount.
We have a discount for people in real estate.
Unfortunately, the discount is only good on the next repair job. A stream of repairmen come over, each facing the same loose wire and each getting creative with fraudulent and unnecessary repairs. After this man discovered the loose wire, he decided to go out to his truck to find a replacement part.
Lucky thing you had that part on your truck.
We carry just about anything you can imagine on there. It fools us once in a while. But
Yeah.
in this business, they have what we call interchangeable parts. And for instance, this evaporator fan motor here is pretty expensive, but it fits
A number of different.
damn near any refrigerator that's made, you know, so
$80 even?
$80 plus tax.
Oh, okay. Can I get that old part from you so I can show the people that we put a new one in and what I did, what I had done to it?
The undercover investigator's request for the old and supposedly damaged part catches the repairman off guard. Nervously, he cuts his own finger trying to make the old part look broken.
Here's your check.
His fake repair job would cost him additional pain, the loss of his business license. In no time at all, this savvy repairman is into the refrigerator and taking it apart. He finds the loose wire and something else that investigators didn't expect.
Found the camera.
Well, you know what? What happened?
Had water off the motor.
Oh, really?
Off the evaporator motor. It's about been here before, and it's a new one. It's going out.
Great. That's all it was?
Yeah, it's all right, fine.
Great. Well, I appreciate you taking care of it so fast.
They could have moved this, and that wire had been loose, and it just popped off.
Possibly so. I just don't know. How much am I going to owe you?
It's $20 and 10 for later, 30.
After finding the hidden surveillance camera, this repairman fixes the fridge but foils the investigation. Many unscrupulous repairmen see the elderly as the ideal victim.
Very often the elderly people are more of a victim because, number one, they're trusting. Number two, they don't have as much choice about who they're going to be around. People come to them, and they're kind of stuck with who comes.
Dishonest repairmen are not limited to the state of Florida. To fight an increase of fraudulent repair complaints, Bob Emmons of the Nassau County, New York DA's office helped set up a sting.
We rent a house. We pretend that we obviously are the homeowner. We have a senior citizen pose from our office as the homeowner, and we invite people in who are repairmen, etc., to see if they do the right thing by us.
The cost of the repair on this refrigerator should have been minimal. That was not to be the case.
There's nothing wrong with this refrigerator other than there's some insulation connected around the fan on the bottom. This individual comes and tells us that a mouse has died inside our motor and that our motor is entirely shot. And he takes apart the entire motor and tells us the charge will be $610.
With hidden cameras rolling, the refrigerator repairman assumed he had the perfect mark in this elderly woman.
What's worse is not only was there no mouse and we didn't need that kind of cost, he doesn't come back. He doesn't give us the new motor, and he takes all the parts from our machine that work properly with him.
Investigators caught up with the repairman, who quickly found out what the real cost of his repair job was going to be.
This individual's company was charged. They were charged for unconscionable trade practices, and they received fines and penalties for this.
With the success of the refrigerator sting, investigators decide to switch appliances. The results do not surprise anyone.
This clip involves a dishwasher repair, and the individual, all he had to do was find that there was a plastic fork that had floated underneath the bottom of the float device. You take out the fork, there's nothing wrong. This guy wasn't going to let us get away with just that.
You see clearly on the tape he finds the fork. Instead of stopping there, the repairman takes the machine apart. Take note of his actions. It seems as if his conscience has him in fear of getting caught.
It's like he's looking for a camera in the ceiling, and you see a little smirk like, oh, this is safe. And then he comes back and tells us the machine is in desperate states, it needs all these parts, and he makes up names of parts. He makes up the thingamajigger is broken, and we have an elderly woman, again, who's an undercover detective from our office. Oh, that's nice, sir. Well, whatever you say, go and fix it. And it clearly shows he didn't do any repair. He just closes the machine up. He charged this woman hundreds and hundreds of dollars for a part that doesn't exist. And he even brings a part from his truck that goes to a different appliance.
The repairman was charged with unfair and fraudulent deceptive practices. He and his company received heavy fines, and their licenses were affected.
This company told us our motor was totally shot. And not only was our motor shot, they took our dishwasher away with them. We see them carrying it out of the house, telling them that they're going to come back in a couple days. Well, a couple days becomes over a week and a half. We still don't have our dishwasher back.
Not only were they fixing a machine that wasn't broken, the unsuspecting repairman also claimed they replaced parts the DA's office had previously marked and numbered.
Finally, we get our dishwasher back, and lo and behold, there's no new motor in it. They just reconnected the wire, which was the obvious problem, and charged us for a motor that was never placed in.
The undercover investigator was charged $329 for a criminal and unnecessary repair. In return, the DA charged the repairman and his company with fraud. As a result of their having been caught on tape, they pleaded guilty and were fined.
The videotape, including the marking of the parts, is the essential thing in this case.
Fines and jail time have not been a significant deterrent to the criminal practice of overcharging on appliance repairs. Even with video surveillance, consumer ignorance continues to make the public an easy mark for dishonest repairmen. Up next, con artists use phones and cyberspace to steal your money. For the 21st century con artist, new marks are often only a phone call or a click away. This is Special Counsel Mark J. Gaines. Mark has prosecuted numerous types of frauds for the city of Chicago. He knows cyber and electronic fraud can cost victims a fortune.
Fraud occurs when a representation is made to induce somebody to do something, invest money, buy a product. But if that representation is false and the other party relies on that false representation, fraud has occurred. Lawyers might call it theft by deception. The public calls it a scam. It's all the same thing.
Elderly people remain tantalizing bait for con artists of every stripe. For those peddling financial scams, they are especially enticing.
We have a particularly vulnerable segment of our society, which is our senior citizens. It's an ever-growing segment of our population, and it's a part of our population which has been investing and saving all their lives, building that nest egg. These are people who are trusting. They believe what is said to them, and they believe what they read.
Thanks to the opt-out legislation, telemarketers can be prevented from calling people who don't want to be called. This will seriously put a dent in high-pressure investment sales pitches or illegal boiler room operations from further bilking the public. Those who succumb to fraudulent stock promoters who work in so-called boiler room operations may find themselves owning shares in a fake or worthless company and cleaned out of tens of thousands of dollars.
Boiler room operations are looking for the people who are willing to voluntarily send their money with very little documentation as to the safety of their investment.
We asked Mark to comment on a scam capitalizing on the turmoil in the Middle East and the enticing premise of oil sales. These crooked brokers set up multi-city boiler room operations and coast-to-coast sales pitches, which they referred to as dialing for dollars. The sell was so sophisticated it took in a certified public accountant. CPA Arthur Moore liked what he heard so much he bought into the deal.
I was guaranteed a return of at least 35%.
Initially, the deal paid off to his satisfaction. Then the first indication he may have been taken emerged.
The checks just were getting smaller and smaller and smaller instead of larger and larger and larger, which is what they should have done.
In an 8-month investigation, 33 boiler room operations, including this one, were raided and closed. 3,500 investors had been defrauded out of nearly $50 million in 16 states. Charges were filed against 10 brokers ranging from investment fraud to grand theft.
I'm not a criminal.
We believe that we have dealt a mortal blow to telemarketing investment fraud coming out of Southern California and the resulting victimization of small investors all over the United States.
When somebody uses words like guaranteed, can't miss, no risk, I put my mother in it, you know, I mean, you got to invest, we only have 3 interests left. You got to invest today. Tomorrow will be too late. I mean, all of those things should immediately put a little red light on in your head.
Everyone who invested lost money.
We're waiting to find out what the next step will be, and that we have to wait for either the district attorney or whoever is representing the state.
The likelihood that the victim investor is going to see their money again is very slim. That's just a cold, hard reality.
One extremely successful international scam has come to be known as the 419 financial fraud out of Nigeria. It's so successful, some estimate that 15% of the country's gross national product is 419 related, even though the practice is illegal both in Nigeria and in America. It's a simple premise. Via email, the con artist contacts potential victims by writing a letter. In the letter, he or she poses as a Nigerian official offering you a deal you wouldn't want to pass up.
419 scams are named for the section of the Nigerian Penal Code which prohibits using electronic media to perpetuate a bogus solicitation plan. Now, with the proliferation of the internet, we are finding most 419 solicitations to come through internet communications, and particularly email.
We asked Mark to comment on this rare piece of tape. A reporter got in direct phone contact with a 419 con artist.
Basically, what do you want to do with the money? You want to put it in my account?
Yes. What I want to do, I want to transfer it into your account because as a civil servant, I'm not allowed to open a foreign account, okay?
So why wouldn't this scammer talk to the potential investor? There's no reason for him not to take a telephone call because he knows that he still remains virtually untouchable to American authorities.
Being able to talk directly to his victim on the phone helps the Nigerian swindler make his victim feel he is closer to the deal. To move a 419 scam past contact stages to discussions of actual money transfers, the con artist will say whatever people want to hear.
How much money do you want to put in and how much do I get to keep?
Yes, I'm transferring them $25 million. And if you assist us, your share will be 30%.
The scammer is mixing in enough truth with enough untruths to make his pitch plausible.
At this point with 419 scams, the caller will ask for good faith money. The cash up front from you, they might say, is for various bribes and under-the-counter payments to officials.
It's essential to remember when dealing with any kind of a telemarketer or an email-based solicitation that if there's an insistence that it must be done today, that should be a telltale sign that whoever you're dealing with is not legitimate.
419 scammers simply play on greed. They also know for those who participate there is no recourse because the perpetrators live outside the U.S. and they have little to fear from officials in their own government. And one final word about 419 scams. Even those who are conned can be arrested by American officials as co-conspirators in an attempt to defraud the governments of Nigeria and America.
We're all adults here. Everybody watching this show knows that there is no free lunch, as the old saying goes.
Up next, some not-so-clever criminals try to con the system. Thanks to video cameras, amateur scammers are constantly getting busted trying to crash for cash to make a fast buck.
One of the most common is called the slip and fall, and it's very devious. And they'll fall down on the ground and pretend that they slipped on the spot, or maybe a little piece of food that they saw lying there. And then they'll groan and moan and pretend that they have a huge back injury or a huge neck injury, and then they'll threaten to sue.
This instant replay con artist should receive an award as the most unconvincing performance ever caught on hidden camera. Watch as he deliberately walks into a display shelf at an electronics store. No one seems to be responding to his loud outcry, so he repeats the entire act.
There was no accident. It was created by him and was all a means to basically extort money.
Now let's watch as this not-so-dynamic duo, mother and daughter team, takes turns on the floor. With mom nearby, daughter fakes slipping on the floor. Mom rushes over to her daughter's aid. They did one more thing as a team: time in jail. Being caught scamming on camera definitely helps with prosecutions. And it also prevents insurance payouts on accidents of this nature.
This is a woman on her way to work, the beginning clips, but unfortunately she's not supposed to be working. She claims that she's in severe pain in the back and neck, that she can only get out of bed for a half hour at a time, that she's carried back and forth to the dinner table, and that she hasn't worked in years. The video surveillance shows her driving, going to and fro, shows her working as a hairdresser. Most dramatically, it shows her at amusement park.
After years of faking illness and filing false claims, the ups and downs of this case would soon put this woman's life on a very long legal roller coaster ride.
She's riding upside-down roller coasters, and we catch her on the log flume going down at full speed. So the woman who can't stand for a half hour spends the day waiting on lines for hours at a time going on upside-down thrill rides. The videotape obviously was incredibly important here and showed that there was a total scam and that she obviously did not have the disability that she claimed.
She didn't work for the next 2 years, but this time it was because she was doing time in jail.
This individual claimed he hurt his ankle, which he legitimately did at one time, but claimed he was not working for years and years and years.
Investigators questioning his inability to work were surprised to find the man on a job while he was collecting workman's comp.
He's working at a job of high physical labor. He's a roofer, and on the videotape, he is tearing the roof off, using machinery, actually putting tar paper on the roof. We see these rolls coming up ladders, and they weigh numerous pounds, and he's just grabbing them and throwing them on the roof and doing the most extreme physical labor, changing and fixing a roof, yet he claims he's not able to do anything at all. Once we played the videotape, there was no question about him being disabled and not able to work. He pled guilty as a result of the evidence, and this videotape being a major part of that evidence.
These individuals were caught, but thousands more successfully scam insurance companies and the government every week. The system pays out millions, but the real cost eventually comes back to the consumer. Insurance isn't the only big business susceptible to cons. Cable operators face a serious threat as well. The #1 instrument of consumer-driven fraud is this little black box. The crime? Stealing cable.
Your cable rates are going up because so many people are stealing and causing such a burden on the entire system that it requires more maintenance, more auditing, and therefore more expense to you, the cable consumer.
How easy is it to steal cable? Simply by reading a magazine or going online. Ads like these tout build your own descrambler. They claim you can get free pay-per-view or premium services. Building the unit isn't a crime, but once you use it, it's a federal offense.
Cable signal theft has become an increasing problem because there is now an entire industry that exists around helping people to steal cable television signal.
If you get those parts to build it and you have an illegal decoder in your home, then you're illegally receiving service. You're stealing it, and there's no other word for it. You're stealing the services.
Companies like this one in Raleigh, North Carolina were closed by the federal government for building thousands of illegal decoders.
It's costing our industry billions of dollars every year, so we are looking at taking legal action against those manufacturers.
Cable theft has become such a huge business. A recent drug raid in a Knoxville, Tennessee home led local police to an interesting discovery. Alongside of the usual guns, cash, and drugs was an unexpected huge stash of illegal cable box converters.
A conversion of each single box is a Class E felony, and we have over 300 illegal cable boxes here.
No one on the drug raid expected to find the cable boxes. But police learned the now convicted pushers had as many clients for the descramblers as they did for their drugs. Comcast cable officials estimate the annual losses the industry faces from stolen cable has moved into the hundreds of millions of dollars.
The city of Chicago has passed an ordinance which makes it a fine for every day that you're convicted for having an unauthorized connection to the cable company's system. Each day is a separate offense, so the range of potential fine can run into the thousands of dollars.
Up next, the biggest threat anyone could face, being conned out of your identity. If your personal information is accessed and your ID is stolen, your life will quickly become a financial and legal nightmare. We use the internet to shop, bid on auction items, and even apply for loans. The information we enter grants access to our pertinent and private financial information, and it can easily be stolen. This is Phil Tambasco, a former New York City policeman turned private investigator.
The newest form of theft right now, I think, is identity theft. If you're in a retail situation, getting information from people's credit cards and passing that on to others or using it yourself, buying merchandise, having it shipped to you in another person's name to an accomplice, that's the newest thing.
Identity theft is becoming a larger problem for us to deal with and to prosecute because it's happening on an increasing basis.
This type of information theft can be accomplished simply by reaching into your mailbox, picking your wallet for ID, or as complex as tapping into secure internet sites. In these surveillance videotapes, a man is seen using an illegally obtained store credit card he was able to get after he stole a federal tax payment from an outgoing mailbox. Using the Social Security number and information and address from the stolen letter, he was able to open a number of credit card accounts at a variety of stores. After trying to buy some big-ticket items at this home improvement center, an alert clerk finally asked him for additional ID. Unable to comply, he ran from the scene and is still wanted by the police for his actions. It's hard to believe, but the simple grouping of 9 numbers on our Social Security cards unlocks the door to a major portion of our lives, past, present, and future.
You would never dream of giving your PIN number to somebody that just asked you for it. However, every day we are asked for our Social Security numbers. Those Social Security numbers go down on applications, they go down on information forms, they go down on school registration forms.
Properly filed paperwork should be somewhat secured, but eventually these important documents are disposed of. The improper or careless disposal of forms gives con artists an excellent opportunity to gain access to personal information.
And what happens to those forms? Go through just virtually any business garbage can in the United States, and you're going to find somebody's Social Security number in there.
Sometimes all a thief needs is an accomplice who works behind the cash register. By writing a check, you might unwittingly become their ticket to luxury. The woman you see here was placed under arrest for identity theft. In less than a week, on illegally obtained credit cards, she charged nearly $95,000 in goods. Her partner in crime was a store employee who had access to personal checks written by store customers. The one thing both victims had in common was each had his Social Security number printed on the face of the check. With that data, the ID thieves easily obtained a number of major credit cards, and their spending spree began. When police became aware of their actions, the in-store surveillance tapes were broadcast on local television.
When a suspect sees the video, they kind of look shocked. Some of them are said, I kind of thought I was being taped, but I thought I could get away with it anyway.
Our Social Security numbers are our individual personal PIN number, and once that is acquired, they can buy cars, they can buy boats, they can do a range of activities where they get the product and you end up getting the bill.
Far too many of us readily hand over our Social Security number over the phone to unsolicited callers. Some con artists use a low-tech approach to gain access to your financial records. They simply ask you. This is done when calling you to offer you a great credit card deal or by claiming you have won a prize that invariably ends up costing you more than the actual prize itself was worth. While video surveillance has proven an excellent weapon in the prosecution of frauds, cons, and scams, the best weapon is an ever-vigilant public. Con artists will succeed in getting to your money if you allow yourself to be taken. As the old expression goes, if you think it's too good to be true, it probably is.
Last time I was there, the disposal wasn't working. The refrigerator doesn't fit in its opening. They removed one piece of trim to get the refrigerator in and never put it back. So now you have a door with just two pieces of trim, one going across the top, one going down the side, and then nothing. It's probably going to cost him an additional $5,000 to bring this kitchen up to speed.
This shady contractor used improper sink grouting, damaged an antique stove, scratched and damaged newly finished floors, failed to install all the cabinet fixtures, left coatings on that should have been removed, charged $1,500 to paint the kitchen without removing nails in the wall, miswired light switches and outlets, and improperly and unsafely installed a dishwasher. Tom's logic is simple. You get what you pay for.
He's the cheapest because he needs the work. He needs the work because he's not that good.
There are ways to avoid true con artists when you are looking to do major work on your home.
The best way to find a general contractor to work on your house is through referrals. If somebody you know, a family member or a friend, has had that contractor work on their house, had the full experience with him. So you can go see the work and how he handled it.
Another danger that homeowners face is high-pressure salesmen who combine supplying a needed service with one you don't need and then push you into doing it. This is Bob Emmons, an assistant DA with the Nassau County, New York's District Attorney's Office.
Scam is a word so old that most dictionaries can't even ascribe an origin to the word.
Up next, con artists pick millions from the pockets of the public by ripping off the system. The famous French Connection cop Sonny Grosso once said, "There's a touch of larceny in everyone's heart." Unfortunately, too many have more than just a touch. With con artists, larceny isn't a part of their life, it is their life.
If someone's out there who's intending to rip you off and you don't have knowledge about the particular thing and you haven't checked them out, there's almost nothing you can do to protect yourself.
One of the costliest scams homeowners can face involves people who literally put the word con in construction. FIDA is a Los Angeles licensed general contractor.
The biggest investment that people will probably make is in their home. And they can fall prey to some of these scams because they don't understand how the house is put together, what makes it work. They don't understand how things are supposed to be done. And that makes them easy prey for a scam artist because they'll come in and just do it any old way. They want to get in, they want to get out, they want to make their money.
Tom has made a good part of his living repairing mistakes or upgrading poor construction done by other contractors. A big swindle consumers face with home construction is the bait and switch sales pitch. Simply, you are conned into paying for high-quality work, but end up with something quite different. To the untrained eye, it may seem fine, but what you are seeing here is the result of shoddy work from a bait-and-switch renovation. To Tom, the results and the problems are very obvious.
If I were to describe the job that these guys did in this house, I could only say that it's at best lower handyman quality. The workmanship was not what they offered and not what they guaranteed. And the men that were there were doing the work were not skilled.
It seems this construction company was very familiar with and prepared to face customer dissatisfaction.
The interesting thing about this bait and switch scam was that when the customer complained about the quality of the workmanship, they immediately gave him a $3,000 discount and made him sign a waiver that he couldn't complain or sue them. So they had the paperwork handy. The homeowner can't be on camera because he signed the waiver, but I can because I have to go in there and I have to clean this mess up and bring this kitchen up to standards that it should be. And by doing that, I need to, we need to install outlets. We need to redo a lot of trim.
Do these repeatedly because we constantly see that the average homeowner can be ripped off.
The senior citizen that was part of the sting knew nothing about termites, but did know the house had been thoroughly checked and it was certified free of the wood-destroying insects.
Here's a termite guy on a house we know has no termites because it's been inspected before we rented.
In this next video, the DA's office hears a sales pitch stunningly overhyped and full of obvious lies.
There are termites?
Yeah, there's termites here, right?
How can you tell?
Just from the evidence, they leave what they call termite grass behind. And you see when it's 1, 2, 3. How long have you owned this house?
Desperately trying to convince us that there's termites in the house. And as part of his thing, he goes on to say that you probably don't see the termites because termites don't like people.
You see what happens when you're not home, they swarm and they shed the wings to reproduce and then they just go away, but you won't see dead insects, you'll just see the transparent wings.
What do you mean when you're not home? Like
See, they swarm in the spring.
Oh.
And you may not be home, and they only do it for like 20 minutes.
So when you go to work and you leave the house, the termites, they swarm, they do their damage, and then they go back in hiding so that they're not there when you get home. And then he also claimed that where they might be, he didn't want to damage the house, so he can't really show us where the termites was.
And there is another thing, too. I could go down and rip some boards open and show you the live ones if you want to see that, because a lot of times people don't believe you, I don't make a practice of it, because of the fact is that who goes around ripping people's...
This particular film clip is a person trying to sell a chimney repair. They're not taking no for an answer. The chimney doesn't necessarily need the repair he's claiming, and he continually badgers our undercover homeowner to do it. Bottom line is they didn't need the repair.
Even undercover investigators were shocked by the intensity of this high-pressure sales pitch.
What's the most leverage you'd be able to afford for the caps? I know it's a recession, I know it's things, but you definitely need them on the top there.
Well, I'll tell you, I'd have to call you back on that, but I couldn't do it now.
And they were under instructions to pay for the cleaning and pay for nothing else.
You give us post-dated check for 30 days, I can call the company and ask.
But just shows the high-pressure sales tactics that we capture in our house things. And they show that the consumers are preyed upon to try to be talked into paying for things that they don't need.
200. Can you afford that?
No.
150.
Now, right now,
that's including the suite.
Right now, I wouldn't want to go for that.
Why? That's so cheap.
And this guy went out of his way to literally push the customer into doing the work that didn't need to be done, to the point where he started discounting the price. From $300 and something down to $150. That's something to look out for. You're probably being scammed.
When high-pressure sales pitches don't work, some dishonest repairmen make up stories to convince the customers to sign on the bottom line.
The clip involved here is, again, part of our house thing. We do